Acroasis VI, or Video 6, the first declension from Chapter 2 of Wheelock, pages 14 to 15. So let's talk first, recognitio. What are cases and nouns? So previously we determined that cases will help you figure out how a noun functions in a sentence. In Latin we have learned 6 thus far. The nominative, which is the subject, or nominativus, the genitive, which is typically possession or description, exemplified in English by the presence of the words of and the apostrophe s added to a word, or genitivus in Latin. We have dative, dativus, which is the indirect object, normally exemplified by the words to or for in English. And then we have the accusative, accusativus, the direct object or object of a preposition. The ablative, ablativus, the object of a preposition as well, typically exemplified by the 5 major prepositions in English, from, by, with, in, and on. And then vocative, or vocativus, the direct address. So let's think about then, how do these cases work? So in Latin, these cases are each represented by an ending attached to a stem, which is the base of a word. So when you take an ending off of a noun, the bits that are left that repeat over and over again, that is your stem or your base, or thema in Latin. This ending that we'll add to this base or thema changes depending on what case the noun is. And then that case tells us what the noun is doing in the sentence. So, for example, if you have a nominative ending attached to a word, then you know it's the subject of that sentence. So, let's take a look at some of these endings. What are they, now that we know what they do? So, we're going to be learning the first declension. First declension has a theme of A's, and the A theme, you can see, kind of goes throughout each ending except for the dative and ablative plural, which both end in is. Now, of course, you're probably thinking, well, how will I tell the difference between these AE and IS endings when they repeat? Well, the answer is context will tell you. So let's go through these endings. The first, the nominative one, is A. Then we have the genitive, AE, dative, AE. These two are diphthongs, meaning they are pronounced I as one vowel. Then we have the accusative ending, which is AM, the ablative, which is A. Now notice the long mark over the A in the ablative. This is a very important mark to remember. Of all the long marks that you will see over vowels, this is one of the ones we're going to require you to learn. So please make sure that you always write this whenever you have an ablative ending. So this long mark is called a macron. So this macron is just telling you that the vowel is long. So when you say, as opposed to the nominative, the ablative will be much longer. So the vocative is the same as the nominative, and notice that's both in singular and in plural. So when we go to the plural endings, again we have this diphthong ending showing up again, I. Then we have arum, is, as, is. Now notice I did pronounce is, as, is, and aurum with the long, but I didn't include the macron. That is because we're not going to require you to learn these macrons. Only the one that I've highlighted in ablative is the one we're going to require you to know right now. So let's take a look at exempli gratia, or e.g. in English. So we're going to see how this actually applies with a word. So we're going to look at fama, famai from your vocabulary list, which means rumor, report, fame, or reputation. Look at this F here. Fama, famai is feminine. The F tells you that it is feminine, and that is how you can recognize words' gender. If you see an M beside a word, that will be masculine. If you see an N, that will mean neuter. And those are the 3 genders. We'll talk more about gender a little bit later when we talk about the adjective and how gender applies with that. So let's take a look at fama and how it is fully declined in both the singular and plural, and then of course the translatio or translation as well. Now let's give you an example to try, an exercitationes. Let's try to decline fully ira, irai, which is feminine and means ire or anger, by writing out and filling out the following table. So I've already put the two forms that are given to us in the dictionary entry, the nominative and genitive singular, in there for you. Now I'd like you to pause the video and write out the nominative and genitive singular that are already there, and then fill in the rest of the table as well as the translation. If you need to, you can always rewind the video and look back at the previous slide so that you can see what the translation would look like. Or if you can't remember the endings as well, remember, just rewind the video and pause it, and you can use that to help you fill in the rest of this chart. So again, pause the video and fill in the rest of this chart now. So this is what your exercitazione should look like. We have ira, irai, irai, iram, ira, ira, irai, irarum, iris, iras, iris, irai. Now, of course, remember you aren't responsible for any of the macrons except for the ablative singular ending. That is one that we're really going to make sure you know, which is the most important one. But know that we're always going to include the other macrons just for your pronunciation reference. So again, this would translate as the ires or the anger, whichever one you chose to write, of the ire or the ires, to or for the ire, from, by, within, on the ire, and ire. Now let's try some lectio et translatio, reading and translating. So we're going to use and apply our knowledge of first declension, as well as the case endings, verbs from the first chapter, to translate these sentences. Now I want you to both translate the sentence and identify the case and number of each noun that's in the sentence. I'm going to tell you an annotation to help you out with finding your verbs. I'd like you to double underline, just underline twice, each verb in the sentence, just so that you know where your action is taking place or where your verb is. Pause the video, resume when you are done. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the answers to these exercises. So go on and take a look and check your work. Okay, so that concludes our lecture for today. I hope this has helped you get some practice in with the first declension. Don't forget to fill out your Google form, especially if you had any questions about those last sentences that we did together. After you fill out your form, make sure you rewatch the video if you need to for any clarification. And once again, guys, I'll see you next time. Valete omnes.